To another episode of Adventures in Book Hunting. I just went to my third public library book sale this month, Saturday, October 19th, and spent a long, long time at the Tazewell County Public Library Friends of the Library sale. Managed to get a few books, 26 softback and children's books, and 8 that they qualified as hardbacks. I spent a total of $14.50. Oh, and in addition, I got 2 books for free. They had a small section of older books in not the best condition, free for a good home, as the sign said. In any event, I just wanted to kind of go through what I found and give a few first impressions. I have to say, as an intro, uh, this was certainly the best library sale I've been to this year, and perhaps one of the more exciting ones I've ever been to in my entire life of book hunting. Um, let's just get into what I found. Um, where to begin? There's just so much stuff. Let's start off with some classics. Uh, I found 2 penguins, both of which I already have in some format. The Chaucer Canterbury Tales I have in a different Penguins Classic Edition. Um, so I'm sure one of the two is going to be headed to the Hatter. Um, I found 4 what I would call Penguin Classics in my entire search in the sale, uh, which for me is just an awesome sale in and of itself. But in the event, Canterbury Tales, this interesting illustration. One of the older Penguin Classics. This is like second iteration of the Penguin Classic line. Let's see here. Next one I found was the Penguin Classic. One of the more modern iterations, and of course it's Arthur Miller's The Crucible. I am pretty certain I already have a copy of The Crucible, but if I do, that one will get donated, and I will keep this one. Upgrade to a penguin. And, you folks know my dragonish tendencies to hoard Penguin Classics. I just can't stand to leave them behind. I got this very, I don't know, very, like, for lack of a better word, generic edition of Peter Pan. In fact, it's so slim, I'm wondering if it's abridged. But in any event, the publication information indicates this is the 1911 edition. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research to see if I've got the full text. Peter Pan, of course, is a classic story. I don't know if I have any Peter Pan or any of the Peter Pan stories or plays, but more than likely this will get donated to the Hatter Bookstore. But it is in good condition. It's just very minimalistic. Next up in my classic finds, this naked hardcover of Henry David Thoreau's Walden from Fall River. And Fall River does pretty books, to say the least. Look at that. Really good book for the season. Here we are deep into autumn. The next one I found was a Dover Thrift classic. And theirs tend to be minimalistic, but not nearly as minimalistic as that Peter Pan I found. This is Tales of Conjure and the Color Line, 10 stories by Charles Waddell Chestnut, a pioneer in the development of fiction giving voice to African American experience. He found literary success with his conjure tales, vignettes from black folk life, recounted often in the vernacular, and later with his stories of the color line, which address more directly the problems of race in America. Like I say, not familiar with this author or their work, but I'll certainly have to investigate. Like I say, treasure I've never heard of, perhaps. Anyway, there it is. The next is one I will probably never pass up. A nice edition of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein from Transatlantic Press. I'm wondering which incarnation it is. Uh, does not say. However, this is a British book. Um, Transatlantic Press is apparently a British publishing house, and a little hint I've talked about before, how you can tell if you have a book published in Great Britain or in other parts of the English-speaking world beyond America. Uh, it says Mary Shelley asserts the moral right to be identified as the author of this work. Moral rights, something you don't see in American law. Moral rights being defined as the rights an author has to a work that are not strictly financial. Um, so, for instance, the right to be attributed as the author. Um, but no, very very nice looking edition of Frankenstein in very good condition. I already have at least one, maybe more copies. In fact, different versions of Frankenstein. So that one's probably going to get donated. And here is an old Airmont classic. As you can see, it's very old. Number 4 in their classic line. I've got a few of these Airmonts. They're not my preferred ones. It says it's complete and unabridged, but I don't know. I have other classic lines that I tend to like better, and I know I certainly have at least one copy of Huckleberry Finn. But this one will hopefully find a good place, a good home, a good place through the Hatter Bookstore. Uh, and the next one, it's been kind of a Gustave Flaubert kind of month. This is the second edition of Madame Bovary that I have found this month. This one is a quality paperbacks classics edition. I'm very certain I already have a copy of Madame Bovary. This one is translated, a new translation by Francis Stegmuller from 1991. Event. Old school romance. Next up is Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. I wonder if this one has the subtitle. I've seen this. Vanity Fair subtitled as "A Story Without a Hero." But in any event, classic Victorian literature. Once again, from a quality paperbacks classics edition. And in fact, here's the third quality paperbacks classic I found in this sale. Somebody must have really loved that line. To me, they're all right. Doesn't hold a candle to Penguin, in my opinion, either in their formatting or in the literary criticism you get along with them. But in any event, still good books to have, and it's Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I know I have a deluxe Penguin of this, so this one will, of course, be off to the Hatter. But it is, I'm not a Tolstoy fan, but Tolstoy fans I know have great debates about whether Anna Karenina or War and Peace is really his greatest work. Anyway. Let's see. Let's get into some of the hardbacks I found. We'll start off with two that I am definitely going to keep. They are from the Penguin Lives series. Penguin publishes a line of narrative biographies. I have one already on Dante, and I'm going to add to that a biography of the Buddha by Karen Armstrong, and one of Crazy Horse, the American Indian leader, by Larry McMurtry. And that's one thing I really appreciate about the Penguin Live series. Their books are written by well, not always experts, but by very good writers who are prominent in the fields. Karen Armstrong is a scholar religious study. I've got lots of her books about Christianity, about comparative religion, um, about the sacred texts like the Bible. I really love Karen Armstrong. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a windowed dust jacket, and there is what the naked hardcover looks like. Very attractive books, and a really nice size. I know some of these are reprints of other editions. I noticed, get this back together. I noticed on the back of it, they talk about some of the other books in the Penguin Live series. And I noted that they have a book on a biography of Robert E. Lee written by Roy Blount Jr. I believe I have that book, but it is not in this format. And I would love to have it in this format. Let's see. Just while we're at it, let's take the Just Jacket back from this one. Oh, yes. Look at that. Let's see. I hope you can see this. I'm filming outside, so I'm kind of doing this makeshift. Look at that. Very interesting portrait of Sitting Bull himself. Let me put this one back together. Uh, Another one that I will probably keep at least for a while, and this is from Bannum's Western series, short stories of Louis L'Amour, Volume 1. I had aunts who really loved Louis L'Amour and instilled an appreciation for Louis L'Amour as an author in me. You know, read quite a bit of him. Read some Zane Grey too. The other like old school, big time Western writer. I tend to like Louis L'Amour better. But anyway, I'm sure I will hang on to this at least until someone says, "Hey, can I have that?" In which case, I'm sure I'd be willing to give it up. But in the meantime, I think this is one that goes in the permanent collection. The next one is something fun. It is The Science of Harry Potter. And as you can see in that little sticker, how magic really works. I've seen a few books like this where they'll take a popular franchise. Usually it's like science fiction properties, like the physics of Star Trek, the physics of Star Wars, how physics works in those environments. But this one is about, as I just from looking at the dust jacket, how magic in the Harry Potter universe could have scientific, rational, naturalistic explanations. Um, but it is, after all, it's Harry Potter. Uh, I'm sure some Harry Potter fans are going to want to have this very badly. So this will be going to the Hatter, and hopefully one of those fans will find it. Okay, next. Uh, a book I thought was really, really neat. Um, this is Charles Addams, A Cartoonist's Life by Linda Davis. And for those of you who might not know who Charles Addams is, I, for many of you, I think you're probably already fans of his work. You just don't know that it was his work, or at least inspired by his work. Charles Addams, many decades ago, was a cartoonist for New Yorker magazine, and he created a series of cartoons featuring a macabre family that are now very, very famous. In fact, I will reveal by taking this dust jacket off. Of course, he was the creator of the Addams Family. And there's an illustration. I don't know if it's actually a Charles Addams original, but it's certainly in his style. This was the style of cartoons he did for decades for New Yorker magazine. And from his cartoons, we had the inspiration for the original TV series, many film adaptations, and of course, now the streaming series Wednesday. It all comes from the genius of Charles Addams. The back illustration. It's pretty cool too. Okay. Uh, And anybody who likes that style, I'm sure is going to really, really want uh, to have this. If you're an Addams Family fan, you're going to want to have that. All right, where to go next? Um, let's go through the kids' stuff. There's lots of books for younger readers. Um, Classic Newbery honor book, My Side of the Mountain by Gene George. Uh, this I know is in the staff favorites section at the Hatter Bookstore, and I believe rightfully so. About a young man who runs away and learns to live on his own in the wilderness. I remember as a young boy having, I guess, runaway fantasies. Didn't know how good I had it, but I never attempted a serious one. But it's an extraordinarily insightful book. Um, but anyway, and it's a nice little modern scholastic one in really good shape. So I think the Hatter will get that one. And next I found three of the books in this series. I've seen these a couple times and actually hauled them a few, but they're the, well, I guess they're called the Uglies books by Scott Westfield or Westerfeld. Um, uh, Dystopian science fiction style fiction for teenage readers. Um, if I'm not mistaken, there's a fourth one. This one's a hardback, and then two different styles of paperback. One Scholastic and one Simon and Schuster Pulse. If I'm not mistaken, there are four of these books. Now, any event, can't tell from this, but I think these will find a readership very quickly. Next, I found four of the 9 Laura Ingalls Wilder's Little House books. I don't have Little House on the Prairie, but I have Little Town on the Prairie, The Long Winter, Farmer Boy, which is, of course, the story of Alonzo Wilder, who Laura Ingalls Wilder eventually marries, and On the Banks of Plum Creek. Like I say, there are at least 5 more of these, and believe me, I scoured to see if I could find more of them. Pardon the road noise. I'm surprised we haven't had more. Um, but these were in such good condition, I had to snag them. Found 3 very easily, and then scoured and found a 4th. But kids are still reading these. Parents are still buying them for their kids. So I couldn't let those get past me by, even though we don't have all of them. Yeah, the next kid stuff. I found this one, which was one of my faves out of this haul. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, fairly popular series by Ransom Riggs. Of course, well known for these bizarre antique photographs that he had throughout. Now, this is not a regular edition of Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. As you can see here, this is a graphic novel version. Mostly black and white illustrations, okay. But sprinkled throughout, suddenly you have bursts of some color. Very, very cool book. And one that I imagine somebody's going to want to have. These books have quite the following, and I'm sure somebody's going to be very interested in getting a graphic novel version of one of them. Let's see what's left. Oh, my last children's book. And you're thinking, of course, Dr. Seuss's The Places You'll Go. One of his more well-known titles. But this book probably had the most interesting provenance of any of the books I found in today's sale. And that is because This is a gift book to a graduate from Vanderbilt University, class of 2007. So I suppose everybody who graduated from Vanderbilt, oh, how long's that been? 20, no, not 20, 17 years ago, got a copy of this book with a letter signed by the chancellor or president, a guy named Gordon Gee. And inside the book is a book plate that says "Be Brainy, Be Footsie" with a dedication, also signed by Gordon Gee. Now, based on where I am and who many of my subscribers are, a lot of people who will watch this will know exactly who Gordon Gee is. They may have different opinions of Gordon Gee. Gordon Gee is the current president of West Virginia University. Has been for many years now. How shall I say this and be nice? I don't know that there is really a good way. I'll just leave it at this. Gordon Gee is not someone that I appreciate very much. In my opinion, has not done a good job for WVU, has had a mission as president of WVU that involves basically swallowing all of higher education in the state under his domain. And because of that, the educational mission of West Virginia University, I think, has suffered somewhat. The tentacles of WVU have grown throughout the state and really try to squeeze out a lot of our smaller four-year institutions. Gordon Gee wants to see a West Virginia higher educational system much like what Texas and Wisconsin have, or California even, where you have a one-state university with campuses various places. For instance, in California, you've got UC Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara, UC, you know, but just you know what I mean. Campuses all over the state, but it's all under one umbrella, controlled by one administration. And Gordon Gee wants to be that guy for the state of West Virginia. Anyway, enough about Gordon Gee. It's still a very neat book, and as I said, it does have some interesting provenance. All right. What do we have left? Ah, okay. On to the contemporary stuff, or more contemporary stuff. I have a good friend who watches this channel, and she might appreciate this one. This is one of Pat Conroy's memoirs, A Low Country Heart. I had not heard of this one, and I suspect she probably has. And this one, beyond just the writings of Robert Conroy, has a section called The Great Conroy, where friends and colleagues basically write about their memories of Pat Conroy. Pat Conroy, of course, has passed away, but there's a section where he's eulogized by friends and family. I've read a couple of Conroy books myself. In fact, not too long ago, I read his Losing Season, which is also a memoir of sorts. But a very good writer. Very good writer. No one can take that away. He's probably most well known for Prince of Tides or Beach Music. But if my friend is watching, you get first crack at this before the Hatter. I don't think I necessarily want it. It's a large print version, but in just really nice shape. Next, I have another large print. This one, The Life of Pi, by Jan Martel. Get a better grip here. I already have a copy of this. It was a good book and also adapted into a very interesting movie. But a very spiritual book, very thought-provoking book. One I certainly recommend. And if you're close enough to the Hatter bookstore, you might want to check this one out. Oh, and everything that's going to the Hatter, give them a few days. These books probably won't make it to the Hatter until later this week, and they've got to process them, so, in about 10 days or so, hop in and any of the things I've told you that are going to the Hatter and that you're interested in, they'll have it. And they'll probably ship it to you too. Next, a very nice paperback edition of Stranger in Strangeland by Robert Heinlein. This is the same edition, although a much earlier printing that I first read, goodness, 30 years ago. One of the controversial pivotal works of science fiction in the 20th century. Um, I think a lot of people think Heinlein hasn't aged well, and really a lot of his stuff hasn't aged well for me either. I remember reading Stranger in Strangeland and being told this will change the way I look at life, the universe, and everything. And really, it didn't. But it was a very thought-provoking read, very interesting read. Um, in fact, the blurb says the most famous science fiction book ever written, or novel ever written. Uh, Probably not, but it's certainly in my top 10. Okay, next we have The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Um, uh, well thought of, another very thought-provoking book. And it's one that gets banned a lot, and therefore it must be worth reading, at least in my estimation. Um, Next we have a movie version of a very powerful story. Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. Of course, as you can see, this is a tie-in version because you have Leonardo DiCaprio on the front cover about the Osage murders, a scam to steal oil lands from American Indians in Oklahoma. I'm passingly familiar with the story, but anybody who enjoyed the film or reading about those issues in our history, I think would be a very good book to have. And last out of my contemporary stuff, I have a very nice new copy of All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. Cormac McCarthy, the current prince of what some uncharitable YouTubers have called Dude Bro Lit. This is a very nice one. As you can see, it won the National Book Award, and this one has the nice embossed seal in it. I have a copy of this already, which I will keep and pass this one along. This is a much prettier version. I have a friend who read most of his catalog for a college course. Cormac McCarthy, I really enjoy his writing, but I don't know. How do I put this? Cormac McCarthy writes beautiful language that has an immediately emotional impact. It really attacks that part of your brain. But a lot of the time, it doesn't make a lot of sense, if that makes sense. um, uh, I think to enjoy McCarthy, you just have to be swept up in it. It's a purely emotional read, but sometimes that's a good thing. All right, what do we have left? Oh, yes. All we have left now, as far as the books I've bought, pardon me, I got 3 very beat up Agatha Christie's. One, an omnibus with 3 novels: A Murder is Announced, The Body in the Library, and Murder with Mirrors. I already have A Murder is Announced and Murder with Mirrors. I do not have The Body in the Library. So I will keep this one, and the 2 individual paperback novels I have for A Murder is Announced and Murder with Mirrors will go to the Hatter. Um, um, you may know, if you've watched enough of this channel to know, I am I'm collecting all of the works of Agatha Christie, but only editions published before 2020, because after 2020, her estate and her publisher decided that they were better writers than her and started editing it for modern sensibilities. That repulses me on many levels. So I have what I call my ongoing cultural preservation project to collect all of her works, along with Ian Fleming and Roald Dahl, who've also fallen victim to that sort of thing. And then I also found 2 individual paperback Agatha Christie Murder in Three Acts, and of course the classic Murder on the Orient Express. And I have both of these already. Both will be going to the Hatter. In better shape than my omnibus edition, but still, very well worn. But even after all these years, Agatha Christie is still quite in demand. All right, now those were all the books I bought. As I alluded at the beginning of the video, there was also a small section, books free to a good home. And I looked at those and I immediately got this one, The Advancing South by Edwin Mills, vintage book, published in 1927. So not quite 100 years ago. And Edwin Mims, according to the title page, it was apparently professor of English at Vanderbilt University. So we have another Vanderbilt University connection today. And at first glance, at looking at the preface and just rifling through, this book compiled, oh goodness, what would it have been? 70 years after the end, no, 60 years, just a little more than 60 years after the end of the Civil War. Very unreconstructed, very lost cause, very still fighting the war kind of writing, essays, criticisms, all sorts of good stuff. There's a part of my brain that still lingers in that camp. But this is one that I definitely will keep. Like I say, it's very vintage, very ex-library. But I guess I'm gonna get another dose of Southern nationalism. We'll see what it's like, and who knows? Might make an individual video about that book. And the last book I looked at, put down, put down. And one of the friends of the library staff saw me interacting with this book and said, "Oh, you need to take it. Says it might be valuable. It's very old." And I'm saying, old does not mean valuable. And it is in horrible, horrible shape. It is a university series, Holmes' third reader, which looking through was probably aimed at, if it were modern era, like third or fourth graders in elementary school. But it is a reading textbook. And as you can see, very old, very worn. Boards are rounded from use. Of course, the book is separated, from the boards, hand sewn, and apparently was used by many, many students in its tenure. But yeah, some of the pages are loose. It is literally falling apart. But there you go. There's the illustrated title page. Want to do some research on this one? I would imagine that there were probably 1 million plus copies of this thing printed, apparently in the 1870s. And therefore, if it were in excellent shape, would probably not be very valuable. I'll probably keep it at least for a little while. And if this goes on my permanent shelf, then this will certainly be the oldest book I owned. This book is over 150 years old. And obviously it shows. But anyway, it's still a neat little treasure. I leafed through it. Like I say, there's grammar, there's literature, lessons on grammar and vocabulary and spelling. Like I say, I guess I'm gonna try and give this thing a good home. And let me look over it. That should be it. I think I've gone through every book I got at the sale. Monster of a sale. And just in my final thought, my impression of the sale, I spent over 2 hours at this sale. And this was a sale that did not take up a lot of space. All the books were in a 20 by 20 area in a local branch library. They had quite a few books, but I've been to bigger sales. I've been to bigger sales this year, that had a lot more books. But I had a much better time at this one. And also, this was a very aggressive sale. When I was first picking, when I go to a sale, this is advice for book hunters. Try and get there early. I didn't get there at the opening, but I got there very early in the sale. Um, First thing you do is you do a broad sweep. Uh, Pick up stuff that just pops, that you can, that you just catch, just catch your eye immediately. And at the sale, I did that very thing, and I had a stack of books like this. In fact, this is how I was carrying them. And one of the friends of the library staffers uh, was kind enough to get me a cardboard box. I put my first batch of books in that cardboard box, and had to chase off other patrons a couple of times. It didn't take long. I would set the box down, turn my back, and would turn back around to see someone going through my books. Uh, but everyone was very polite, very nice. And I said, "Oh, excuse me, those are mine." And that was enough. And 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 even though I knew they probably weren't going to take me up on the offer, I informed both sets of people who were going through my box. You know, told them very clearly, there's only 4 or 5 of those books that I really, really have to have. If you want anything in there, I'm more than willing to share. And everyone was very polite, and of course, no one said they wanted anything out of the box. But after the a second incident where somebody was trying to go through my books, like I say, you're at a sale, those kind of things happen. The Friends of the Library ladies were kind enough to put all my books that I had found so far back out of sight and out of mind. And in fact, even then, when I came up to pay, there was a lady trying to look through my box. But like I say, an aggressive crowd, a very polite crowd, a very bookish crowd, but a very aggressive crowd. This sale had a very fun atmosphere, and I'm really glad I got to go. And if this is going to be the last big library sale of the month, maybe of the season, I'm really glad I got to go. And I know this video has gone very long. If you're still with me, thank you for lingering this long. Um, I had a great time, and I hope you had at least had a good time looking at what I got. But with that, I will say goodbye, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you.